We're going to start the meeting. We have a quorum now. It's Thursday, August 19th, and this is the Planning Board. Thank you all for coming. First, we'd like to have call to order, and I'll accept a approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to do so?
Motion's approved.
Okay. Harrison?
Second.
Okay. Any question about it? All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Approval of the minutes. Everybody's had a chance to look at them, and I'll accept the motion to approve.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Aye. Before we get into the meeting, I'd like to acknowledge our town manager, Shane Fox, who is with us tonight, and councilperson David Harwood, who's in the back there. Thank you for coming. So, business at hand, Green Hill Estates. Kevin, you want to start us off and give us an overview, please?
This is special use permit 2021-04 for Green Hill Estates subdivision. The applicant is Herbert Townsend, and he's requesting this special use permit for a 10-lot single-family subdivision off Green Hill Road, and this is in the ETJ, extraterritorial jurisdiction. The property is 6.54 acres and it's zone RA, residential agricultural, and is also in the water supply watershed. I need this on camera. Okay.
Thanks, Shane.
As I mentioned, this property is in a water supply watershed. There'll be a new road, new private road off Green Hill Road that will have a cul-de-sac to access all the lots. The property is outside the town limits and will utilize wells and septic systems for the home sites. This overview, this aerial shows the property in yellow. It's 2 tracks just off Green Hill Road. I had many questions thinking that they had already built the road. That's a road, a driveway that's just up along the barbed wire fence right before you get to the parkway land, and that's not part of this. Part of, as you look at the aerial, you can tell part of the property is a meadow and the rest of it's woods on the upper part. The minimum lot size for lots in the water supply watershed is 1/2 acre, and each lot meets that requirement, and also the lot width of 100 feet. I'm going to zoom into the site plan and show you that. And if you look up at the on the screen, the current drive access is about right in here. There's a little gravel, there's a big surge stone right here, and that was to provide access to the property so they could use it. Eventually, after the road is built and constructed, they'll plant trees on each side of the road on 30-foot centers, except where there's some trees that can be retained once you get into the wooded part of the property. If there's trees that can be retained within that 50 feet from the center of the road, then they can be retained and not have to plant any trees. And the wooded part is kind of hard to see, but it runs right through here. That's a little green line that represents the limits of the wooded part of the property. Each lot will front on this private road. You can see all 10 lots there. Maintenance of the road will be the responsibility of the POA once created. Road will be paved. See here, this is the cross section of the road, typical road. It says public road, but the public road standards for the town and private road standards are the same. Just the difference would be who maintains it. This being outside of town, as I mentioned, the property owners would maintain it. 18 feet of pavement, and then they have grass shoulders, and no need for curb and gutter because the road slope is less than 10% or 10% or less. So no need for curb and gutter for that portion. One of the things that the engineer did was, instead of coming straight into the site where that driveway and that culvert is now, is to come up on the property a little bit and swing around and try to lessen the slope coming in off Green Hill Road. There is a land use code limit on the cul-de-sac length of the road at 550 feet, unless there's no other practical alternative. This proposed road is 653 feet to the center of the cul-de-sac, and that's where the road length is measured. And given the steep topography at the end of the proposed road and the property owner not having access beyond that to connect to other public or private roads, doesn't appear to be any other practical alternative but to provide a cul-de-sac street at that length. I'll have the engineer for the project, Patrick Warren, he'll address that in more detail once I'm finished with this presentation. Stormwater management, there will be some stormwater detention is required for the proposed road, and there'll be several points on the site that will be designed for stormwater control, and the engineer will get into more details on that as well. Mentioned earlier, properties being in ETJ, no public water and sewer services are available. Well and septic will be approved by Watauga County Health Department. Currently, on the preliminary plat, they're showing 10 lots. If they cannot get 10 lots, they'll have to do less lots. And then once they've finalized that, then the final plat, before it's recorded and before lots can be sold, once the road is built, will reflect that. It will not be more than 10 lots, but if it has to be reduced based on well and septic approval, then they'll do that, and they'll turn that in for the final plat, whether it be 9, 8, 10 lots, whatever the case may be. And that's pretty standard. You don't do all the septic work until you get approval. It's costly, and that's standard. That's what everyone does in the county, and would not be expected to do that on the front end. In the packet, I showed you the vicinity map. The other plan here is a road profile, and the part on the left is Green Hill Road as it connects, coming in a 10% grade for that first bit until you get to a pretty gentle grade of 2.5%. And then when you get to the crest of the hill, down to the cul-de-sac would be 5%. So pretty gentle road. You know, as y'all know, if everybody's seen the property, we call it mountain flat. It is. Lays pretty good. So that's all the details from the staff report and our analysis of it. And be glad to answer any questions you might have at this time.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Do we want to defer questions until we hear from the applicant or the engineer? If that's the case, if the applicant would come up and make a presentation, or are you going to have the engineer make the presentation? Okay. If you could give us your name, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board, staff. I'm Patrick Warren, professional engineer in the state of North Carolina. I'll do the presentation tonight. The owner, Mr. Townsend, is here, but I'll give the presentation.
Okay.
Okay. So as Kevin said, this will be a private road subdivision. I thought in my haste, I corrected it to a private road, and that was my mistake, but I actually sent him the wrong plan. But it will be a private road. Our soils analysis is scheduled for September 15th. The contract has been signed with Land Resource Management about a month and a half, 2 months ago. They're very busy. So we will have them on site, and as Kevin said, we may have less lots if the soils don't show that we can do 10 lots. As far as the length of the road, I asked Kevin where that 550 feet came from. He said, well, it was in the code when I came. To me, I just think it's an arbitrary number. I don't know where that came from. There were no, to me, the person that would have a comment about that would be Kent Graham, Fire Chief. There were no comments from him about this being 100 feet longer than what the code allows, unless there's, so for us to develop this property to its, we could get more lots if we extended the road, but we chose not to do that. If we could gotten 2 more lots, we chose not to do that. So we ended it at basically kind of just over the top of the hill. So I think that it's a good design. You know, Watauga County doesn't have any requirement about the maximum length of a dead-end road. They do require you to have, if it's over 1,000 feet, they require you to have a turnout, you know, every 1,000 feet. So this will be lots for single-family homes. Until we get the Soils report, we don't know if they're going to be 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, or 5-bedroom. Mr. Townsend is a home builder. He anticipates building 1 to 2 spec houses per year on these tracts, as well as selling some of the tracts. So at this time, we don't have square footage. We don't have any idea of what we're doing, other than it will be single-family homes. And we do have the driveway permit issued by the NCDOT. There was one previously issued for the center tract. I felt it would be better to come in where we could follow the land better, not have such a big double cut when you come in on the entrance. Aesthetically, it would look better, and would just be a better entrance. And so that modified permit has been reissued by the DOT. And I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Bill?
Community well,
Sir?
community water.
They'll be either single wells or shared wells. It will not be a community system, no.
In terms of the building of the houses, is there going to be some oversight on continuity of design and, no? Anybody
We
can
can't
just?
do that.
Yeah,
You can't do that in North Carolina.
Okay.
Anything that's regulated by 1 and 2 family building code, the state removed any authority from local jurisdictions about 6 or 7 years ago that we don't have a say in color, design, any of it. So we cannot do that.
Okay.
We used to.
don't, go ahead, Ken.
We used to in downtown for single family, we had to take that out. Yeah, now if they privately want to do something in restrictive covenants, you know, that's up to the property owner if they'd like to do that, but we don't have any authority to do that.
Patrick, you mentioned the fire chief. Does the road have compliance with fire trucks getting in and out? And can they make the turn down?
The cul-de-sac meets the code, the town code, for the dimensions for the pavement and the right-of-way. So I don't know that, you know, an extra 100 feet is just not, in my opinion, it doesn't matter, you know, in this case, because it's a flat grade. We pushed it back to take advantage of getting back as far as we could to get to those back 2 lots.
We increased the radius about 10 years ago. It used to be a 30-foot radius for the cul-de-sac from, you know, center of the cul-de-sac. We increased that to 35. So you have a 70-foot overall pavement through the cul-de-sac, and then we increased the right-of-way at that time from a 30-foot standard right-of-way to 35, and then in the cul-de-sac it's 40.
Is there going to be a fire hydrant anywhere on the property? No?
No water. There's no water.
No water?
There is one down at, I think at Wonderland, where the town's jurisdiction is, where the city limits, town limits is.
What sort of setback requirements do the houses have to meet in terms of in their lot?
It-
I think it's 25 on the street, 12.
It's 30.
On the sides and the
Is it
back
30?
It's 30 in the front and 12 on the sides and rear.
and the rear?
Then it has to be a minimum of 100 feet at the setback line.
So you're,
RA district is 25 from the street
Oh.
and
I thought it was 30.
12 on the sides.
Okay.
Yeah, gives you a little bit of leeway.
Okay.
The septic system on lot number 8, that's going to be affected by the well on the adjoining property owner, is that correct?
That's correct.
You know what that radius is?
If it is it's either going to be I think it will be 100 feet from that well. There's two different regulations. If that lot has a single well, number 8, then the setback would be 50 feet. But if it is a shared well, then the setback is 100 feet. For an off-site well, I think it is a 100-foot setback.
It mentions the county health department. What kind of time frame do you expect to have approval for what you need from them?
Well, they've retained a private consultant, Land Resource Management, which is based out of Asheville, but their soil scientists, the two soil scientists they have in Watauga County, they live in this area, used to be with Watauga County. The regulations have changed to where you don't even have to involve the health department if you choose to go that option. They can design the system, sign off on it, and then the county has to accept that system. The permitting of the wells would still be through the health department.
So Kevin, can we approve something without having that, the wells approved?
Yeah,
That's typically, it's a preliminary plat.
that's what you do in any part of the county. That's the way they do it. And it wouldn't be any different here.
Is the topography of the lots 8 and 9, does it go down towards the property line?
Yes.
What has been addressed about drainage to the back of the properties?
We will be addressing that once we get into to design that there is an existing, there's a little bit of a ditch. You can see it right there. There's a little bit of a ditch that runs down to Green Hill Road. We would be improving that with a ditch on this property. Then one of the memo points from McGill Associates review was that we have to do a hydraulic analysis of this ditch that goes all the way down to see if it needs to be improved or any of the drainage pipes need to be improved too.
Anybody else? Joe, any comments?
Well, I'm guessing you're gonna put it down to Green Hill on the town. Now, what if the town drainage needs improvement from that point to wherever it's going? Whose cost is that?
That has not been discussed, but I think the existing pipes, from what I saw, just, stopping and looking at them will be okay. There's mostly 18-inch pipes. I think there's one 15-inch pipe at one driveway. It goes down and, that's good right there. This drainage starts up here and comes down, and then it goes down and goes on this side of Wonderland. It goes into the
Who makes
creek.
a determination if there's enough drainage to take a road, a cul-de-sac, and 10 roofs worth of water? Who makes the
Well, it's
determination?
my calculations, and McGill Associates would concur with that.
Who would confer with that?
McGill Associates, the town's engineers.
Gotcha. Good.
Sam or Harrison, any comments? Bill, any more? Okay, we'll move on to the public's input. And before I do that, I'd like the record to show, Tammy, that we did receive a letter from Ruth Winslow, and we've been given that letter, so that'll be part of the record. Okay, I'm not sure how many people, I know, Tim, you want to talk, and I'm not sure how many others want to talk, so when you come up, state your name and address and where you live, and try and keep it brief. Tim, you know the drill.
Good evening. My name is Tim Gupton. I live at 235 Meadow Lane. I'm speaking on behalf as president of the Boiling Rock Civic Association. And I appreciate your service on the planning board because frankly, this board has a major impact on the future of Boiling Rock. So my take on the planning board is, that you guys are to evaluate the facts presented by the applicant and the planning director, and also consider input from the community, and to determine conditions of approval and variances. I sent an email to the planning board on August 16th outlining 4 questions I just hope that you would address tonight and debate and include in your deliberations. Unfortunately, we took a little bit of a tangent this week as someone from the town sent that email to David Rogers, who wrote an editorial about that email and my post on the property. He addressed things that were only in the email, so therefore someone had to send it to him from the town. I suspect somebody has an agenda that's different. He didn't call to discuss any points, and he reached some what I think are misleading and misrepresentations in his editorial. So let me make one thing clear. As a civic association, we don't oppose or approve support projects. That's not our mission at all. We believe that community participation is important, should be encouraged. It's just fundamental to local government. And so being labeled as a shadow government, I think, is wholly unfair and just leads to division and reflects an unwillingness to listen to one another. So my goal as president has been to build relationships, listen, work together for the future of Boiling Rock. So our goal with respect to projects that come before the planning board are pretty simple. We want to make sure the facts are on the table, explain any interpretations, declare any variances, and use the opportunity to advocate for changes that could be helpful in the future, like improving the watershed and water quality ordinance, which we all know have got some issues. So the 4 points that we ask you to take a look at, you've addressed some of this. The road length, it seems as though that's a variance as part of the conditional approval process. The well and septic tanks permitting, as I understand from Mr. Rothrock, is traditional to approve in advance. But if you do that, I think it's just important to clarify that the lots can't be any smaller than a half an acre because they're in the watershed. You haven't addressed traffic. I don't know whether a traffic study is required for a project of this nature, of this size, but we all know that the Green Hill traffic study is pending, so that's an important issue with respect to this particular project. And it's not clear from the documentation that a stormwater management plan is being presented or even required, and I think there are some big questions with respect to drainage that should be addressed, not just on the property itself, but the downhill aspects on the town and the surrounding neighbors. So it seems that should be a piece of what you consider tonight and put some parameters around that. So in a little bit of jest, I hope my comments are much ado about nothing. So thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Kevin, do you want to make any comments about what was said, or just?
No.
Okay. Anybody else want to speak? Yeah. If you'll come up and state your name and address.
My name is Lynn Rudder. I own the property next to the acreage that intends to become a whatever. I own the property that has the well that will probably be destroyed. And that's one thing I've been concerned about. When my father deeded this property to us, there was a strong search for water sources throughout that field. And certainly, there may not be enough water to support 10 houses. I don't know. The septic systems planned for these 10 houses are a concern for my water source. When there comes a heavy rain, as we've had lately, my yard is a mud bog. So the drainage from the field is heavy. So there's going to have to be a lot of engineering to stop that. What I'd like to know is where are all of these drainage systems along the highway that you've spoken about? The drainage systems along the highway. There aren't any. There are no large drainage systems.
There's a ditch and some drainage.
Well, they must be stopped up. They could be. So it's going to take a lot of engineering to fix that. And that's a state highway. It doesn't belong to the town. The state takes care of that road. The town doesn't take care of it. The town doesn't scrape it in the winter. They don't take care of the side ditches. The state does. And that is zoned as agricultural land. All of it is. Every inch of it. It has been for years. Why do you want to change it? It's so close to the parkway. It's less than a quarter mile off the parkway. Why do you want to change that? We have thousands upon thousands of people who come up here every year, who hike that MST that is right behind our house. Why are you going to destroy that? Why are you going to do that? This is going to be a development that's going to destroy a beautiful piece of land. I don't understand that. That's ridiculous. Those houses are not going to have a view. They're going to look into each other's bedrooms, living rooms, and bathrooms, for God's sake. Why do you want to do that? This is not Chicago or New York City. The man is trying to make a big buck off a small piece of land in the mountains. Stop it. That's not what Blowing Rock is about. It never has been. And it shouldn't start now.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, other members of the audience that would like to speak? Please give us your name and address.
May I?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
I just have a problem with the mass, period. My name is Robert Lee Warren. Brought my notes so I'd remember. I'm a lifelong resident of Watauga County, except for the time I was away in school. I am a retired dentist with a practice in Boone for 47 years. You may say, well, you don't have a dog in this fight. And I don't, so to speak, but I'm planning to. The family has moved to Blowing Rock, except for the oldest daughter. And we were able to do this due to the caring and concern of one of your residents, Cora Holder Keene, and her sisters, Ruth and Rhea. We have rented a very nice 4,000 plus square foot house from Mrs. Keene with the possibility of additional property for purchase. I still own a house in Boone and an office, but some of this property that we are involved with, of course, is next door to Mr. Townsend's proposal. And I have talked with Mrs. Keene about the possibility of buying additional property for and/or a house that she already owns. My hope and prayers are that Mr. Townsend builds comparable houses to the present ones that are there. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Excuse me, you left your mask up here? As much as you don't want it. Okay. Other people, please. You can take your mask off if you want to speak, if it's
Okay.
easier.
Thank you. I am Cora Holder King. I live at 1978 Green Hill Road in Blowing Rock. I moved here when my house was completed in February of 1998. I came back home to live after my parents were killed in an automobile accident in 1990, just down the road from where I live now. This land has always been home to me, and I love it. I've always enjoyed the peace and quiet that I have, and I am concerned that this is about to be gone if Mr. Townsend is allowed to build 10 houses just across the street from where I live. The noise from the construction with the big trucks constantly coming up Green Hill Road to the side of the development will be here for who knows how many years. I have property adjoining the property that Mr. Townsend owns. Also, I have two sisters and a niece that have property behind the land that will be affected. The value of this land, which has a beautiful view of the mountains and the lights at nighttime from the towns of Hickory, Lenore, Taylorsville, Hildebrand, Drexel, and Morganton, will no longer be an asset to our property. Looking into the back of someone's house who will live there will also be a concern of mine. You see, I have never had to worry about my neighbors, who they are or where they come from, because all of them are my relatives. This has always been Craigtown because my mother's mother was a Cragg, and some of her siblings live here from property that was given to them from her. I ask you, the planning board, to consider the concerns I have and will greatly reduce the number of houses that Mr. Townsend can build. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Other speakers?
My name is Mark Nunes, live at 1807 Green Hill Road, and I'll try to keep my comments brief in respect of your time and the hour. My wife and I, my family have been full-time residents in Blowing Rock since 2014, which is relatively short, but my wife's mother, Evelyn Craig, was born in the house across the road. My wife's grandfather, Bill Craig, built many houses in Blowing Rock, so we have a very long history and connection to Blowing Rock, and spent a lot of time trying to find out a way where we could live up here full-time. So we're very, very pleased to be living where we're living, and have a deep, deep sense of connection to the sense of place that is that section of Blowing Rock that is so special and unique to that area. So there's a lot of emotion tied up in that sense of place. Even noting that, there are three specifics that I would ask be addressed and addressed more clearly. First, to the matter of drainage that we've already discussed, that wash that's coming down Green Hill that turns on this side of Wonderland is our property, the corner of our newly built house. And as it is, there's already quite a bit of wash that's going down Green Hill. The proposed 10 houses would, if my math is right, triple the number of homes that are going to be draining down that road. So that's a considerable amount of concern in terms of water that's moving down. Second, in terms of the variance of the length of road, if I was following the presentation, clearly it sounded like the argument for the variance was that number seems to be arbitrary. But the fact is that is the number. So this is a variance that's 20% longer than a road is allowable. Another option might have been to put fewer houses and to make the road shorter. So rather than arguing that the number is just arbitrary, it is a variance of 20% beyond what is allowable. And third, I hadn't thought about this until someone asked the question about fire hydrants. That hydrant is at least a half mile from these properties. I don't know much about fire maintenance and fire control, but I would think that that would be a significant concern for such a large number of houses built so far from the closest water access point. Again, just in conclusion, if I have to speak from my heart, what hurts me most is the thought about the sense of place and the damage that such a large project would do to the sense of place. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else?
My name is Alan Yates. I own Alan Yates Realty in Boone. And my dog in the fight here is I know that I respect everybody's opinions here. I'm a 5th-generation native here in Watauga County. I used to, in high school, mow lawns and grew up doing them in Blowing Rock. And what a great place to live. It's always been an awesome place. And in the last few years, I've had the opportunity to watch and help design the homes that Mr. Herbert Townsend has been building and selling, custom homes, spec homes. And out of the several builders that I work with, he's top shelf. He does great work. I have no trouble selling his product once it's ready to sell. And I assure you that, as Dr. Warren says, we want quality built up there on that ridge, and we want houses that anybody coming to Blowing Rock would want to live in. They won't be just little cracker boxes. This last home that we're supposed to close next week currently is over 3,400 square feet and sold for over $800,000. And so we've got a great product, a great builder, and his whole family has been in the business for years, his son and grandsons. It's a family tradition, and they've done it well. And I assure you that it'll be up to the county to regulate how much septic will work. Once the report comes in, that'll determine what we actually can build up there. And it will be, definitely the county standards for how much water we can use and how many houses can use that water if it's been shortage, if it's a hard problem to get to water. They have regulations that will stipulate how many homes can be built accordingly. And we look forward to having septic approval or evaluation completed here soon, and then we'll know what the county will say we can build. And if 10's the maximum, we may not end up with 6 or 5 or 6. It depends upon the county. But, with the landowner that he is, and it should be his right to say, I want to make a great product, and I want to maximize my profits. That's what it's about, but also to make a nice community in a very nice neighborhood. And we want to do everything right, and we want to have drainage properly. We don't want to flood into neighbors. And, we want to do it right. We do, I assure you. And I appreciate Patrick and Kevin, everybody's help in this, and you all as the members of the board. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, anybody else?
My name's Ron Swift. I'm married to the youngest Holder daughter, and we own property there on Green Hill. My concern is, as I think other people's are, maybe, is the drainage situation. I can't imagine putting a road in there and not putting curb and gutter. Why would you not have curbs if you're planning to do a little something for the drainage, especially for the lady who lives next door to them? The curbs, in my opinion, would put the water back out to the road, main road, and then I worry about where the water's going to go to after that. And I'm sure she is worried about the water coming down the hill, coming in on her property. But I think the curbs would help that situation. But also concerned about the sewer. They said they wasn't contacting the health department to get the right of sewer systems.
That's not what he said. He said they've already been in contact with them.
But you said also that they were not, you didn't think that was a problem whatsoever?
No.
But I think it would be a problem for the people who live in the neighborhood.
No, what I was saying is, you don't go out and start getting, if you're gonna do a subdivision, you wait until you have approval to move forward before you spend the time to have the soil scientists come out and look at each lot. If they don't meet that criteria, then they'll have less lots. Based on what the soil scientists recommend, and that goes to the county. We're not part of that. The county regulates septic. Just like we have some lots in town that are in Caldwell County, and they have to get septic approval from Caldwell County because they don't have sewer down in Laurel Park, and places like that.
But I do thank you, Tom.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anybody else? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is David Trahan. I live at 594 Green Hill Woods. My question is, what are there, I know from Kevin's standpoint, there are no restrictions, is what I heard, as far as house size or, and so forth. I'm wondering whether the developer is planning to have some covenants that will impact the property relative to house size, quality of the materials. I know this gentleman over here spoke about, you know, that he's done high-quality work before, but, you know, quality is in the eye of the beholder. I'm just kind of curious, what does quality mean in terms of specifics as far as what's going to be there? I would be curious to know that. Thanks. Let y'all speak to that issue.
Okay, thank you for your comments, David. If there's no other group that wants to talk, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing part of this.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by aye, saying aye. Aye. Okay, so we've heard a lot from people here and good comments. Are there questions now that we want to direct back to the engineer to qualify or further amplify some of the questions that have been asked? Sam?
For the engineer, would a sewage drainage study dictate, obviously has an estimation of the runoff per house, and that would quantify at least what the potential runoff is, but would a study dictate the number of houses that it could hold? And a recommendation that we could provide is that we would defer to that study based on the amount of houses that it could support?
Well, a half-acre lot it's a pretty big lot for a single-family house. You know, sometimes you see a house that's 6,000 square feet on a quarter-acre lot. Is the runoff more? Yes. Until we know the sizes of the houses, no. I don't think there's a way, we don't know what sizes of houses we're going to use yet, but that will factor into the calculations once we find out what the soils will support. Now, we are putting in stormwater controls at the road. We are required to do detention for the road itself in this area. What I'm doing is, instead of just taking it to one central place and discharging, I want to break that water up, take it to different places. So some of this water is going to discharge back this way, some's going to come down, but these two will go into treatment road, which is already a requirement by your town's engineer that we do a study on that ditch and the drainage system going down. So we will account, when we do those calculations for this ditch, we will take into account the impervious area that the houses will generate for that. But we are slowing the impervious area from the road will be detained to pre-existing conditions.
So we're waiting on the soil study, and then that determines the size of the house, and then we're waiting on the drainage study.
I mean, it's typical in any municipality, I've been doing it for a long time. Any municipality, you submit a plat, you don't have your soils. I mean, you approve it, and then we go out, and then we do the work, standing lots right now. As Alan said, from a marketing standpoint, we may only end up with 8 lots.
I understand. We
may end up, combining 2 of these on each side of the road, we only end up with that. But as I discussed with Mr. Townsend, at some point, let's say next year, he doesn't want to build houses. He wants to sell this. A 10 lot entitlement is a better investment.
Yeah.
right? So, but we don't know that. There will be no more than 10 lots on this tract.
We give a quick summary of the process. Subdivision is a little different from just building a little retail shop or a restaurant or something. So, this is a major subdivision because it's more than 3 lots and involves a road, whether public or private. They submit a preliminary plan, the applicant does, a preliminary plat. And so they go through the special use process, start with you as a recommendation, and then they go to council for a special use permit. Your process here is a little more open, no sworn testimony, you're a recommendation. And then town council is sworn testimony, is sworn, you swear in, and is a little bit more legal from that standpoint, more like a court. Once if they were to obtain approval to do the special use permit and do this subdivision, then they really got to go to work. They got to do the soil test for septic. They've got to do all the stormwater. So they can't do any work until they have a final set of construction drawings, and that will entail all the conditions of that special use permit. And at that point, we'll identify how many lots they can actually get. If they can get 10, they're going to build 10, they'll build the road. When they complete the road and any stormwater requirements and all the stabilization measures and any conditions that are a part of it, they'll pave the road, and then at that point, they'll record the final plat. If they meet all the criteria, we sign off on the final plat that it meets the standards, it meets the special use permit, and then they can record it. Then they can sell lots, not before. So that's kind of the process on how it goes. So the bulk of the work happens after the initial preliminary plat is approved. And at the end, they come back with a final plat that is recorded that reflects either the preliminary plat or a modification that has less lots, which is based on how many they can get because it's septic and well. If it's in town, it's water and sewer, you don't have to do that. So hope that explains kind of the process and why we do what we do.
Can you clarify, just from my knowledge, that we really can't approve this based on 10 lots? We're just approving based on them wanting to build on this lot as a whole?
No, you're approving their application to allow them to do 10 lots, and you're providing a recommendation. If they can't do 10 because of this, they do their soil test, then they have to rearrange these into a format that's either 8 lots or 9 lots or 7 or whatever the health department would allow. And at that point, then they record a final plat that has that number of lots reflected. It's customary, very common.
Would it be possible to hear from Doug, the town engineer?
Yeah.
And Doug, if you would.
We probably ought to really open up the public hearing, because it's a little premature to close it when we're getting information.
Okay, so
So y'all
reopen.
do that, and that way we can still share.
Okay.
There may be another question comes up.
Need a motion to reopen the, okay. Second. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, we're back now in open session, and Doug, appreciate you being here. So what do you think?
I prefer to have a more specific question, but that's fine.
Okay. All right. Okay. I will ask a specific question then. We've heard a lot about the water situation, and so it seems like, I remember the Heather Ridge situation where water was a real big issue with neighbors and everything. And so having said that, and now looking at this, how can the applicant control some of this water?
Well, thank you. Let me back up and add to Kevin's comment. One of the things we do when we get a set of plans, whether it's for a subdivision or a new hotel or whatever it is, part of our job at this stage in reviewing the plans before it comes to the board is to make sure that they're proposing something that we think can reasonably be built. We've had some things that physically may not be able to be built, but reasonably can be built. Can they do the things that they need to do to make the development work? So in this process, you know, if there's something that doesn't meet the code, or if we think there's a stormwater issue, I mean, we've been doing this for 15 straight years, so you can kind of sense where there's going to be a stormwater issue.
Right.
So we're looking for projects that has a reasonable place to outlet the water. The water still has to run downhill. The water that's running across that field now is running across that field now. Will it increase? It probably will when you build houses. But there's water running across there every time it rains now. There'll still be water running across, depending on how they redirect some of it. So from our review so far, we think they can reasonably do what they say they want to do. Now, they will have to come back and design this. We don't always ask them to evaluate stormwater downstream, but we did on this project just because we want to make sure that everybody's confident that if they discharge water from the street into the ditch on Green Hill Road, it has a place to go. We don't want to hit a ditch that's this deep and this wide, it runs off into the street and causes all kinds of problems. So they can develop the property, they can build the houses. The code doesn't require single-family houses to have stormwater management. So the new houses that they've talked about that were built around those properties, they don't have stormwater management because they weren't required. The properties downstream, you know, part of your responsibility as a property owner is you have to accept the water that's running across to your property from upstream properties. You know, that's not a problem when you're upstream, but when you're downstream, it can be a problem. And every time something changes, somebody has a problem. And then you have a hurricane come through and everybody has a problem. So I've said this before, there's never a perfect solution that solves every stormwater problem in Blowing Rock. But they can build this and make reasonable improvements and management and it not have an adverse impact on the property owners.
So Kevin mentioned that there is not a requirement for curbs and gutters, but yet people have talked about is, do curbs and gutters help mitigate some of that water flow?
That's an interesting point because curb and gutter helps you manage water, but it doesn't reduce the amount of runoff.
No, I understand.
It probably increases it, and it probably speeds it up. If you look at stormwater management, the goal is to spread water out, make it diffuse, and make it go into grassed areas. You put curb and gutter in, you're not putting it in a grass ditch, you're putting it in a concrete curb, you're putting it in a pipe, and you're piping it away. So you generally create a little bit more storm water if you put in curb and gutter. But that's generally, people try to do that because of the look it provides or the function that it provides. Or it's part of a code requirement, which it isn't at this spot.
Any other questions of Doug?
It's looking at that plan and the topo, does a road not help redirect that flow that's coming across that field right now and directing it more toward Green Hill?
Just looking at it, this field generally drains to the south, is that correct? So yes, that road will capture the storm water north of the road in that field. And I think your intention is to direct it some to Green Hill and some to the back. So there could be less water that comes across lots 8 and 9 after they build the street, capture the water and carry it in different directions.
Would it be reasonable to say at the backs of lots 8 and 9 to create a berm that would carry the water coming off of those properties down to Green Hill Road?
It would be reasonable. That's going to put more water on Green Hill Road in that ditch quicker, but probably not ultimately anymore. It may come up a little higher in the road. That's why we wanted the applicant through their engineer to verify that once they get into the actual design of the project.
I'm not sure if this is for you or Kevin, but what avenues do the neighbors have, let's say if there's a problem with this ditch that may or may not work, because the state maintains it. I mean, do they report that to the town? Do they call the state? I mean,
You talking about on Green Hill
on
Road?
Green Hill Road.
Contact NCDOT. They contact me first, but I'm gonna contact.
It's NCDOT's responsibility. If history tells us anything in Blowing Rock, if somebody has a complaint, they're gonna call the town,
Yeah.
whether it has anything to do with the town or not. That's just the way it tends.
I'm sure I'll get a call.
I'm sure you will.
That's okay. That's what we do. As you look at that lot, part of Lot 7, all of Lot 7's in the woods. But then when you start getting to Lot 8, that's when it's starting to slope down towards Green Hill and also down towards Ms. Lewis's. So, that was my thought there, just something to keep some of that water, you can add a condition to the special use permit that all gutters as these properties develop, that all gutters are not concentrated in one place, they spread out across the site. And as Doug pointed out, lots 1 through 4, the road is going to be above those, or it's below them, but that ditch line is going to catch that and carry that water down to Green Hill Road. So some of that is going to be taken away.
Okay. Any further questions for Doug while we're in open session? Any other comments of Doug? Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Okay, I guess we can go back and come out of open session. So is there a motion to close the open session again?
Motion to close open session.
I'll second. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, so what's the pleasure of the board?
This is what I think. I understand development, I understand where Mr. Townsend is coming from. I was up in their property today. 10 homes is overbuilding. There's just too many houses. And I don't want to wait to hear from the septic tank people how many they're allowed to put in. I feel like we should take it upon ourselves, put an acceptable limit on it. I mean, it's a nice piece of property, I understand where you want to build, but my job here is to make sure that the right thing is done for where we live and where their neighbors live. And I think 10 houses is just overbuilding it.
We come to a acceptable number.
Eat it, Joe's.
I posed the question to Joe, how do we arrive at this acceptable number?
I know I might get beat up by Mr. Townsend, but I think we're to cut it in half.
Okay,
You'll be selling 2 lots together as one. You're going to have expensive homes. The people behind it are not going to have loss of property value. I think it's a win-win thing.
To that point, Kevin, I had a question for you, is if they do 5 lots, and let's just say it's acre lots, or roughly about that, is there something that would prevent a new owner that owns said acre lot to split that up and build something else on it? And now we're getting back to this problem that we're addressing.
Whatever the subdivision is approved for is what it's approved for. Keep in mind, it meets the ordinance. If you're going to make a recommendation that does not meet the ordinance,
It meets the ordinance if we let them make that road bigger, right? Longer than,
they cut the road down to 550 feet. How many would that affect? 1 lot?
Yeah, we do a sheer ground off the end of the cul-de-sac, we'll still get it.
As long, what I'm saying is, is the road, does 5 and 6 meet the road, the lot width criteria at the cul-de-sac? So I mean, they, you know, if the road is 550 feet, it would set that road, that cul-de-sac about between, you see where lot 7, let me zoom it in. Lot 7 and 8, that common boundary line goes straight up. So if they had to do that, they would move the center of the cul-de-sac to right there, and it would be right there. And they still probably could get, you know, however it's done. It's just, again, your recommendation, okay? You just have to be aware of getting outside the code. If the code allows them to do that and they meet the code, and just
Bill,
under advisement.
any thoughts?
Yeah, if you're going to place restrictions on the developer, you got to have a basis for that.
Okay, Harrison?
I mean, it meets our town code, half-acre lots in our watershed. I don't see how we could say, no, we have to make acre lots. That doesn't make sense to me.
Okay.
Seems like overreach.
So I would tend to agree with everything that's been said, and I understand the amount of homes that are proposed to be built, but as Kevin points out, they meet the criteria, and for us to go out of that is going to be problematic. I mean, we're only making a recommendation. We're not approving anything. 'Cause our recommendation would go to the council, and the council would have to make that decision. So, and I appreciate where Joe's coming from, but then again, you know, if it's meets the criteria, it's...
If you're making conditions, they have to be reasonable. And if you're going to limit the development in some way, just be very clear about why your justification. Is it tied to something in the land use code, or is it related to the comprehensive plan? A special use permit has findings of fact that you have to vote on. You don't. Council does. So if there's somewhere where you're tying it to something in the code for a limitation, fine, you spell that out and then make that your recommendation along with any other conditions. You know, if we're talking about what we brought up, hydraulic analysis of the ditch on Green Hill Road, what can be done for some of the lots 8 and 9 as they drain down to lower adjacent properties, Ms. Lewis's property. Drainage off each home, those are conditions that can be applied. When it gets to council, they can take advisement of your conditions. They can modify them, they can throw them out the window, whatever. But, you know, those conditions, we will pass that on to council and identify those. And when I draft the special use permit, it will include those things that you recommended. If at the public hearing, those things are struck out, we take them out if council doesn't want to agree with that. If they say these are good conditions, they stay in there. They can modify and add more conditions to other things that may be of concern as we go through the public hearing. Makes sense? A lot of talk, maybe more confusion than anything.
So, does somebody want to craft a motion here? Bill?
Do you want to talk about conditions first and get a list of those, and then let's approve the list? I mean, we could add, like Kevin was talking about, either a berm or ditch at the rear of lots 8 and 9 to deal with the runoff to the property to the south. I think it's an excellent idea. I would like to see that as one of the conditions.
Okay, any other conditions, Joe? Is it dovetailing with what Bill had said?
You know where I stand, I have nothing to say other than that.
Okay.
I think a condition would be that obviously the size of the house is dictated by the soil study, and then the number of lots has to be dictated by the sewage drainage study, because again, I don't think we can justify with the facts and come up with a reasonable number, and that's what I'm struggling with.
I think it'd be less than 10.
Well, I mean, that's the hope, and I think that obviously would be better in a lot of our opinions, but to tie the code or a reason behind that, that's what I'm struggling with.
Okay, so we have some restrictions from Bill, from Sam, so who wants to put that into the form of a motion?
I would also say that we don't grant the variance. It doesn't seem to cause the developer any hardship. So I don't think there's any reason to grant it
For the road length.
for the cul-de-sac being
Say that again.
650 feet versus 550. I say we don't grant the variance because it's not a hardship to the developer.
Okay, are you suggesting we make that part of the motion?
I am.
You are, okay. So now we have 2 or 3 motions. Billy, you crafting okay, let Bill work on this for a minute.
I'm still struggling with the sewage, or the, hey,
I mean, it's not really a condition. I mean,
'cause the
obviously, they're
county
going to be
and other
tied to
people
the
dictate
sewage
that.
study and the soil study, so it's not really adding much to it.
just
I'm
making everybody aware, yeah.
that I think that's a consideration that has to be made before anything is decided.
All right. Motion to approve the plan as submitted with the following conditions. Berm along, or ditch along the rear of lots 8 and 9. Limit the length of the road to 550 feet per code. And acknowledge that the lot sizes are dependent on county health department with the location and size of the septic systems. Anything else?
Location and number of lots.
Location and number. Okay.
So just so we're clear on this, Bill, would you have a motion to approve? Would you restate that so Tammy gets all this down for us?
Okay. Motion to approve the design as submitted with the following conditions. A berm, lot, or ditch along the rear of lots 8 and 9. Limit the length of the road to 500 feet per code. And location and number of lots based on county health department septic system permits or evaluation.
you get all that, Tammy? Okay. So we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. Let's do I'll call for the question and ask each person to approve or deny. Joe?
I have nothing else to do but deny it. I don't like it.
So you're voting no?
I'm voting no.
Okay. Sam?
Approved based on those conditions.
I'm sorry?
Approved based on those conditions.
Sam? Or Bill? Yeah. Harrison?
I vote to approve.
Okay. And I vote for approval. Okay. Thank you for all the input, and we're going to move to new business. I would like to reference, and Tim mentioned this, there was an article in the Blowing Rocket, and there was a comment that said residents and business owners, whether or not a voter or taxpayer, need to be aware of what's going on around them. Arguably, neither the Board of Commissioners nor the town may be doing an adequate job in that regard. We're living in the information age. Maybe having an agenda for upcoming meetings sent to constituents' emails is being proactive. So I would throw out whether addressing this time frame, whether we need to give the residents more time, especially when we're having big issues, so that it's not just a week or two or something like that. So I'd like to hear what each of you think about that idea.
I don't care what David Rogers says. That's all there is to it.
Okay? Sam?
I mean, I definitely want more public input. I don't know if more time is going to lead to more opinions other than what we've heard today and in other instances. And I think everything is duly noted. I don't think there's ever one side that's not heard. And if that is the case, then I think there's something we need to look into about giving more time.
Okay. Bill?
Well, Kevin's hands are tied in some respect as terms of advertising. You've got a window that you have to advertise in. Is it still 10 to 25 minutes?
10:25.
You can't go beyond that window.
Right. I have to send out public notice between 10 and 25 days of the meeting.
It's already covered.
Yes.
Well, that
And I
should
send
be,
it to people as our ordinance requires, within 150 feet of the property.
Harrison?
I don't think there's anything wrong with the system. We were hearing complaints that during the winter when people could remote in and it was easier than ever, so I don't think it's broken.
Okay. Well, then it kind of sounds like we'll just leave it the way it is. Okay.
What was that from that you read?
Oh, it was an article in the Blowing Rocket. All right, other business. Any updates, Kevin, from your end?
We'll get the subcommittee back together and look at density.
So kind of the end result of all that was that the subcommittee will start its in-town review again on the density part of it.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I'll email you guys and we can get together and
Okay.
have a time to do that. And, got a couple of projects that have been applied for, redevelopment of the old Tanner building across from Outback. Ann Furr bought that property. She doesn't have a particular use proposed right now, but, retail or something like that. Ann Furr. And she's got plans to build a parking lot to serve the building. And really don't have any other applications, but I've been talking with some people about some new applications that are coming.
Anything on Rainy Lodge?
Yeah, I did speak with, I emailed Mr. Barker, and they're trying to finalize everything. They are still moving ahead and still planning to start construction. Yes, sir. They had some things that they were looking at to change, some value engineering, and they're working through their contract with the contractor now. And so my anticipation, I did follow up with him last week, and he said they're going to be moving ahead.
Okay. Any questions of Kevin?
We've had, 4 or 5 new home applications in the last couple of weeks. Had one today. Mr. Winkler's going to build one on the Green Hill property. So.
Okay, if there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you all.